It's really great being here and being able to give this talk. What I want to talk about is some new trends in innovation and what impact they will have on you as individuals, okay? First slide. So what is innovation? And of course I went out to the web, looked at Wikipedia, and I picked up this definition. And generally it refers to making improvements, coming up with new ideas, again, creative solutions to interesting problems. Next slide. Back in 1962, President Kennedy gave a talk, and he tried to inspire people to work together. And the economy wasn't very good, and he wanted something that would pull people together. And what he announced was that the United States was going to put a man on the moon by the end of the decade, meaning by 1970. Okay? And this really was, I believe, the birth of something called big science. Okay? Big science is the idea that you must spend a lot of money to achieve some goal, okay? And I think that's not necessarily true. You don't always have to spend big money to make a major breakthrough or an achievement. So, go ahead. Click, click, click. So what's happening is that innovation is moving. It used to be in the domain of very large corporations and the governments. The governments typically would fund a specific kind of research. People would get the money, they would do the research, and everything was controlled by large corporations or the government. And slowly over time it has changed. It has moved down to small companies, and they are becoming innovative. And finally, I believe today, today's current trend is that individuals are going to be the leaders in creativity, okay? So in a large corporation, usually they're very slow to respond to market forces. We have a saying, a corporation is like a dinosaur. And there's an old myth that if you saw a dinosaur and you shot him in the head and killed him, they thought, this isn't true, but they thought that the signal would take minutes to go down the spine and before the animal would fall over dead. In other words, it was so slow to respond to anything. And so large corporations are usually compared to dinosaurs. They also tend to be very risk averse, meaning they don't want to take any chances. They want to keep everything running very smooth. Some corporations realize that this is impacting the long-term success of the corporation. But it's very difficult to get people within the company to become not entrepreneurs, they call them intrapreneurs. Like an entrepreneur working within the company, okay? It's not really very successful. Oops. We'll see why in a few minutes. They're still constrained by corporate culture. Any company, any university has what we call a culture. Just like a city has a culture, a country has a culture, companies have a culture. And this puts limits on their ability to be flexible and to deal with problems. Next slide. So, true creativity, it really comes from individuals. I mean, even in large corporations, the corporation isn't inventive or innovative or creative. It's the people within the corporation that are coming up with the ideas. Today, there's been a very significant lowering of cost in both hardware and in software. Most of you are familiar with software. A lot of software is free. You can go get shareware, you can go get open source code. It's very easy to get new software. It's very easy to develop new software. Well, the same thing is happening with hardware. We saw let me stop there. As this cost does come down, it allows individuals, I'm getting ahead of myself, the lower cost is going to allow individuals to be innovative, and they couldn't in the past. In the past, they relied on the large corporation, but today we're going to see individuals are going to have the advantage. So corporations are no longer essential to fund innovation. So within a corporation, we say size matters. And I arbitrarily define the corporation just by the number of people. I mean, sometimes they do it by sales or they do it by assets. I just pick some numbers, and I just want you to get an idea of what a large corporation is. And they have an entrenched corporate culture. And this means that they want to maintain the status quo. They don't really want to change. Okay? You have very strict policies and procedures. I mean, if you have a company with 1,000 people, you need some way to be able to communicate with them, control them, make sure that everybody follows a particular pattern, the pattern of the corporation. Again, we said that large corporations tend to be very risk adverse, and part of this is that most large corporations have stockholders, and so they have a responsibility to their stockholders, okay? And, you know, corporations are required in most countries to file quarterly reports. So every 3 months, the corporation must file a report, and it shows their profitability. Are they making money, or are they not making money, right? So this puts limits on the corporation. Right? They don't want to suddenly be profitable, then unprofitable, okay? Because then their stocks will fall. So this limits their ability to adapt. Next slide. Mid-sized companies, I define maybe 30 to 300 people. And as you add more people, there's more overhead. Okay, there's more overhead. You need more people to add more people. Okay, so where if you're a small company, maybe you have 1 secretary. If you're a big company, you have 50 secretaries. Okay, so as the corporation gets bigger, it gets much bigger very quickly. In many countries, if your company gets over a certain size, there's additional requirements. You maybe have to follow a minimum wage. You have to have certain kinds of benefits. Okay, these are all additional costs that are affecting the middle to large corporations. And within the mid-sized companies, formal policies and procedures are being implemented. Okay, they're starting to standardize how to do anything. If you want to go on a trip, there's now standard forms you have to fill out. Okay. You want to take a vacation, you got to fill out a particular form and request vacation time. So all of this impacts their ability in terms of innovation. And finally, the risk aversion is increasing. These companies are small, maybe they're profitable, maybe they're not profitable, and they're trying to get profitable. So again, this limits their ability to innovate. So finally, we get to a small company. And here, I'm talking from 1 to 30 people. And I do mean one. One person can be a company. And this is what's very powerful. It's a very powerful idea. You have ultimate flexibility. If you're a one-person company, you can do whatever you want. You don't care what somebody else says. You don't have to follow the rules. Cost is lowest. It's available to anyone. Anyone can be an entrepreneur, be involved in innovation and creativity, okay? And you outsource or automate everything. By outsourcing, we mean you pay pay someone else to do it for you, okay? So if you're a small company, 1 to 30 people, maybe you don't have an accounting department. You hire a part-time accountant, 2 hours a week he does your accounting for you. You pay him some small fee. You might outsource your marketing. You pay somebody else a few dollars or something. He helps with the marketing. Someone else might do sales for you. And legal. Most small companies, and even individuals, do not have a full-time lawyer, where large corporations would have very large legal fees. Okay? So all of this means that anybody can get involved in this. And I have very specific examples. I have one friend who is a company by himself. He does software development. He sells some special libraries. He markets everything over the internet. He works from home. He's got 3 daughters. And he can spend as much time with his kids as he wants. And he can sit there and program and handle user problems, make sales. It's all automated, a one-person company. Another friend of mine also has a one-person company. He's a software developer. He only knows programming. So he wrote a very interesting program. He got his sister, who has a full-time job. They part-time act as sales. He's got another friend who also has a full-time job, and he helps with marketing. And they all make some money when they make a sale or they do the marketing. And even he has a full-time job. So he is running his basically one-man company while working at a full-time job. And that is possible today, okay? Another key thing is the speed of innovation. This is something else that is changing. Back in 1949, we saw the first patent for integrated circuits, right? And in the 70s, okay, you could start buying integrated circuits. And usually these were chips that might have NAND gates, or some very simple electronic components on these. And so if you had 12 NAND gates on a chip, you would have 36 inputs and outputs, and you had to wire all of these up to build your little digital circuits. But finally, of course, chips became more and more complex. You could put more and more power on a chip as the technology allowed us to make the lines and the connections thinner and thinner, okay? So now we have chips that they're very powerful computers, right, just on a chip. We have memory chips, etc. Okay? So from 1949 until this really had a big impact, it's almost 40 years. 40 years. In the 90s, we started to see cheap PCs. And I mean really cheap PCs where almost anybody can afford to have a computer. Okay? And this was basically from the idea of the integrated circuit. So, speed of innovation is not a luxury. It's a necessity. Okay? You must be able to respond very quickly. Next slide. So, some things you need for innovation, you need to be first, not necessarily the best. Okay? If you get out there and you're the first one, everybody knows your name. I mean, everybody knows if you want to buy a book on the internet, you go to Amazon.com. Okay? I mean, everybody knows that. They were the first. Now, they have other competitors, but, all right, they are typically the big name. The other reason is speed is so important is you have many potential competitors, okay? Because it's so cheap to innovate. The other thing you have to worry about is customer needs and requirements. They're constantly changing. So a large corporation cannot deal with this. It requires individuals to deal with this. And of course, you do need to market your idea. People are not just going to buy your product because it's cool. You have to really tell them that it's cool. Next slide. Why? Why are these changes taking place? First of all, the world economy is forcing, and I put that in quotes, governments and large corporations to cut innovation. They need to save money, and one of the first things they cut is innovation R&D money, okay? But the other side is the cost of doing innovation is constantly falling, because now you can buy on a chip what maybe took a whole room as a computer. Actually, most people's chip in their cell phone is more powerful than some of the first vacuum tube computers. So technology is falling not only in size, but in price. Conclusions. Creativity is shifting from large corporations to individuals. Smaller is better. And this is kind of a green innovation. We have lower cost of innovation, lower energy requirements, lower need of resources, and more people can be involved in innovation. There's one more. Finally, we need to be aware of this trend, okay? We've got to be prepared to make use of it. We're going to get less and less money, but you can do more and more with it. And that's an important concept to understand, okay? Anticipate changes, and the key word, adapt. Thank you.